Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deep3. Today, I have a special guest, Tommy Strine from Lamar University. He's the director of operations. He's been a coach. He's played basketball at the D3 level. He's coached Concordia in Ann Arbor. He's been at American University, my alma mater, which that's where we met. And he's also been at Cleveland State. Tommy, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. Like I was just saying just a second ago, I have a ton of respect for you, Vlad. Ton of respect for your playing career, for what you're doing now with players and stuff. And this is an honor for me to be able to talk to you. Under some amazing circumstances, right? So this has been awesome, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, certainly some crazy times we're living right now. I mean, seasons overseas canceled, the NCAA tournament canceled, which is it's like I look the whole season. It's like I can't wait for March because that's the TV I watch. It's like I don't really watch TV other than March,
That's what
April.
we prepare for, right? That's what we prepare all year for, and for everything, and then it's in a blink of an eye, it's gone, type thing, for sure.
I know. It's pretty crazy, and I kind of feel for, especially for the seniors. I mean, I can't imagine going out that way. Some of the guys, didn't have a chance to even play in the tournament, as far as like conference tournament, let alone the NCAA tournament. So it's definitely something unheard of, at least from what I know, the history of basketball and NCAA. So,
Right.
anyways, Tommy. So, like I said, you've been at American Cleveland State. You've played, you've coached, and now you're the ops guy at about every single level in college basketball. So this podcast, I've done it mostly to connect the basketball worlds. I've noticed that in Europe, sometimes they don't really understand what NAIA basketball is, what D3, D2, D1, stuff like that. Everybody knows D1, but then once you go down a level or something, they kind of get they get a little bit confused, or what an op guys, what they can do and stuff like that. I was close during my time at American. Coach Jones, he moved to Bryce Simon, who's like one of my good friends, to
Yeah.
be director of operations my junior year. So that's when I kind of create that connection. I was like, what does it mean to be an ops guy, and stuff like that. And I know that's changed over the time. So can you tell me exactly what is the stuff that you're allowed to do right now, as far as on court or like in the office, stuff like that, as director of operation at Lamar University?
Right. Well, just a general outline, I guess, just kind of start. An ops guy is a staff position. It's an administrative position, basically. So you're not allowed to really do anything as far as basketball wise on the floor, recruiting. You're not allowed to really be involved in any of that. Now, recruiting, you can do some stuff as long as it's on campus. Like you can't be, out watching high school games, out watching AU games. But you do some stuff on the backside of it. When kids come to campus, you're usually pretty involved with that. And then as far as like on the floor coaching, you can't get that stuff during practice. I was a video coordinator there, so I did only video there. And administrative, and then Coach Mooney and those guys, they were really, really good at letting me be involved in other aspects to the rules. Then at American University, I was able to, Coach Brennan's great. Coach Brennan was very hands off, kind of let me kind of do my thing, and trusted me with everything, and was able to, say, hey, we're going on a road trip, put together our itinerary, get our food, get our hotels, get our, our bus, our flights. And so he was very hands off, kind of let me do that. I went to Cleveland State. Coach Felton was great. He's a little bit more hands on. He wanted to, kind of, know what was going on a little bit more. So it was a little bit more touchy feely. It was actually going from like one extreme to another, which is good. I learned a ton in both regards. Of how to be detailed to your head coach's, experiences, but also, at the same time, kind of add in my own stuff too. So that was good on both ends. And, Coach Price here, he's pretty hands off. He's, he trusts me pretty well. He does want to know what's going on in his program, just like any coach does. But he's been good too. And he's been around it for, 30 years. So, he's good. So, the general outline is basically, hotels, travel, pretty much anything on the backside that you never really think about. You and I, a lot of basketball, fans, they just watch the game on TV, but they don't think about how those guys were fed, how they were clothed, how they got to that game. How the bus driver pulled them in when they parked the bus, where the bus is, who got the uniforms washed. They don't think about all that stuff. And that's kind of the ops guy's job. And then each staff that you're on, each coach that you work for, something they might ask you to do more things. Like and for instance, I do some of the video as well because we don't have a video coordinator. When I was at Cleveland State, we had a video coordinator, so I didn't do as much video. When I was at American, I did. It was a smaller department. Everything, the entire athletic department's on one floor, so I was much more involved, kind of with the athletic administration than I was, maybe at Cleveland State a little bit more, where the athletic department was a little bit bigger. So, it kind of, like I said, it's different spot to spot, but the general outline is you're very administrative, and everything that you don't see as a basketball fan is kind of what I do.
That's awesome because you kind of actually cover. It was my next question: the difference between the levels of American, Cleveland State, Lamar University. So you kind of covered that. To me, ops guy, they don't really have those guys in Europe, and I think that's huge. They have team managers, but they never have this kind of set roles, and it's huge because very few teams. And I noticed. Yeah.
Sorry, I got you. Go ahead. You were going in and out there for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah. Like I was saying, very few teams in Europe have this kind of orderly ranking in the staff, and it's
Right.
a lot of chaos. I've dealt with a lot of chaos in Europe from stuff like this, and communication and all this stuff, right? So to me, this is really a good starting point to go into coaching.
You're saying in Europe, it's a little bit the organization.
Yeah, the organization is different. So, we dealt with a lot of chaos, I would say. And not,
Right.
I'll say most teams, but a good amount of teams, as far as everything that you mentioned, from meals, or sometimes they forgot about a meal in between flights and we had like 2 flights, stuff like that. But to me, and I know, you at some point you want to become a coach, and I think to me this is the best part because in this kind of position you really learn how to deal with the players from a different perspective. You
Right.
learn that. You also deal with, like you said, with the video stuff, and you're in the meetings with the coaches, and you can absorb all that. So I think it's
Right.
a great start. Towards,
Well, make no mistake about it. I definitely want to be a coach. I don't think that anybody really. I mean, there's probably some exceptions, but for the most part, you get into coaching because you want to coach. You want to be an assistant coach, you want to be a head coach, and it's been frustrating. I think over my 6-year career so far of like being close, seeing certain guys get jobs, seeing certain guys not, and it is a frustrating process. But understanding that everything that I've done so far in my career is really going to help me in the long run. And it's small things, organizationally. I don't think I was ready organizationally when I first got into coaching, where I would be a good assistant coach as far as organization. Organization was not one of my strong suits, and this job has forced me to learn to be organized. Learning to work with so many different people. On a daily basis, I'm not only working with our head coach, I'm working with our assistant coaches, I'm working with our players, our managers, the women's team, the administration, other coaches. Which as you become an assistant coach, now you know how to work with a different group of people. You can work with anybody on that stage. And then I think the biggest thing is just you got to be creative in your job. I gotta find a way to market myself so that way when I do become an assistant coach or have an opportunity to become an assistant coach, I'm not just some guy. You gotta be able to do that, but at the same time, be great in the role that I'm in, and try to be the best ops guy that I possibly can. And I think that, your reputation takes you so far in this business. And Vlad, you understand that as a player overseas, your reputation overseas and playing and stuff like that takes you so far. It's the same thing in the coaching world. And so like my focus, right, my focus as an ops guy is to be great in my role. And because that reputation then will eventually take me on to, I'm sitting in front of a head coach that's getting ready to hire somebody. What's your reputation? What's your head coaches have to say about you? What's your assistant coaches have to say? Take a step further. What do your former players have to say about you? What does the administration have to say? And so what helps with that is just being great in your role. And that's what I battle every day is be great in my role, but at the same time with your goals being to be a coach, to be a head coach, to move up, so there's I got to be the balance there, obviously. But you're right. nobody really, I think, ever gets into this job thinking, oh, I want to be an ops guy forever. I want to do food orders and buses and worry about if the plane's going to be there on time. Worry about, like, nobody wants to do that forever, right? So kind of thinking through that and trying to do that and everything, but also, being great in my role. Because at the end of the day, the reason I got into coaching is because I love basketball and I love to teach it to guys, right? And so taking care of my players is my number one priority. I'm here to serve our players. I'm here to serve our players, serve our coaches, serve our administration. And it's have a heart of servitude. And that starts with our players, and then it kind of goes from there. But at the same time, you also have to think about yourself a little bit too, about your career, and you got to worry about your wife and your
you said it right now. I think, and that's why I think you're in a path, to achieve your goals. You have to be great at what you do, and you focus on what you can control right now, and it's your job, your task at hand. And I think as a
right.
player, sometimes that's a great thing that you can teach your guys. Just deal with the role you've been given. Everybody wants to be James Harden, everybody wants to be LeBron James, but
Right.
when you get on the floor, when you get to a certain level, they're gonna tell you, "Hey, it's not your thing." Maybe I just
Right.
want you to set screens and run the floor. I want you to rebound. So the
Mhm.
sooner you realize you just got to be great at what you do right now, then that's gonna take you further. That's how you're gonna advance. That's how you're gonna move up. Uh,
Right.
as far as like playing, coaching, anything that you do, I think in life, it's huge.
Well, and I think something to add to that, as a player, if you're given a certain role, what your role is, but you also know what you can, what you need to improve on, so your role can expand, right? You might be just a rebounder and a shot blocker. Okay, so that tells me that coach thinks I need to get better on the offensive end, right? So now I know what to work on specifically. It's the same thing with me. I know what my role is, as an ops guy, but I also know what I need to get better at so I can move up into another role. And so it's very similar in those regards. And you're talking from a player standpoint, and I've seen this, guys, when you're given your role, not only do you have to be great in your role and improve in your role, still be a good hey, you're a rebounder and a shot blocker. Okay, do those two things really, really well. Doesn't mean that you just ignore the fact that, hey, I need to work on my offensive game as well, or I need to work on, my lateral quickness or my strength. Like, those are the reason that that's not your role is because you need to get better in those things, right? And so, teaching guys that, but also, it does translate, to my job a little bit too, and what I do. And, as an assistant coach, you be great in your role as an assistant coach, knowing that, in order to be a head coach, these are the things I need to work on, type thing. And then improving yourself in those areas as well. So there is a direct correlation, I think, between my job and being a player as well. I think that that's a unique part about it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now that like I said, you've seen basketball at all levels in the States. You've played basketball at these levels, and I want to talk to you about the difference between, let's say, Concordia, where you've been, right, in Arbor, um, American University, Cleveland State, Lamar. Talk to me a little bit about the difference. Not exactly, because people think that, oh my God, you're just going D3. I kind of scratch my head, and I'm like, wait, is that a bad
Mhm.
thing? I'm like,
Right. Right. Well,
what
I've
are you doing?
so I've coached.
I'm like, I've seen guys that can really, really play at those levels, and I've seen guys become millionaires overseas from
Right.
D2 or
Right.
NAIA school.
Right. So I've coached at the NAIA level. The University of Richmond was my first full college season. That was the A10, right? Then I was at American, which is the Patriot League, which is high academic Division One. Cleveland State, which is mid-major Division One, and then Lamar, which is mid-major Division One as well, right? So I've been at, and then I've coached at the high school level, and I've coached high level AAU for Space Indy Heat program, which is of the EYBL. They qualify for Peach Jam every year, right? So I've been around pros. I've been around, high level college. I've been around mid-major college. I've been around NAIA kids, and I'll tell you, there's players at every level. I mean, there's dudes that can go at every level. I come from Indiana, which is the best, and the Crossroads League is the best NAIA league in the country. And there's guys in the NAIA. There's teams in that NAIA league that could win Division One conferences, and I'm convinced of that. If you threw Indiana Wesleyan into a Division One league, a low major Division One league, you would actually see them compete, if not win that league. Because guys know how to play the game. I think the difference that you see probably, from the high level EYBL that I was involved with Speed, where those guys are going to the NBA. And like the A10, for instance, when I was at Richmond, as opposed to maybe American, is really just the size and athleticism. Probably your 6'6" guy that's dominating an American is probably 6'10" in the A10. Your 6-foot point guard that's dominating an American is probably 6'4" in the A10, or he's a 6'5" point guard instead of a 6'1" point guard. Your center has a 7'4" wingspan and jumps 40 inches at the A10 level. And at Cleveland State, your center is 6'9", and only has a 38-inch vertical jump. You have really good players though. One thing I will say, the skill wise, like guys are very, very skilled at every level. But the one thing that I see from good players at all levels, and you can probably attest to this, is coachability. Like the guys that are coachable and guys that are tough, that translates. Like toughness and coachability, and I would add in scoring ability. I don't think that there's a guy, like I had an argument with this the other day. Like if a kid scores 2,500 points in high school or 2,400 points in high school, he's going to go to college and be able to score more than likely. Like that just doesn't go. Guys, no, you don't score 2,500 points and not just like forget when you go to the next level. But I will say consistent for good players from the high school level to the college level to the NAIA level to the pros that I've worked with. Because I was blessed when I was in Cleveland. A lot of our guys that came back I worked with them. They were pros. In between their seasons, I was able to work with them. Then when I was with the Indy Heat program, I worked with guys that are playing in overseas, playing in the NBA. I was blessed with the opportunity to lead some individual workouts with those guys, and some of the guys that I was with at Richmond, been able to work out with them a little bit when they were done with their careers, and just see the toughness and the coachability that those guys have. I mean, I'm a 21-year-old kid, basically 22-year-old kid working for the Indy Heat program, and Deshaun Thomas is in there, and my boss is like, hey, Deshaun needs to have a workout today. Can you go work out Deshaun? I'm like, Deshaun's going to be a draft pick. He gets drafted by the Spurs, and here I am, a 22-year-old, doing workouts with him, being able to learn that. But going back to the yeah, he's awesome, man. He's awesome. Being able to be coachable. And that goes to Deshaun was willing to be coached by me. I'm 22. He's 19. I just picked him up from Ohio State. He's coming home for summer. He needs somebody to work him out. And here I am. I'm still in school myself. Working him out, but he's coachable. He's listening. Hey, you're right. I should be a little bit lower when I go right here for this pull up. And he's coachable, but he's also tough. And that's the thing is that toughness and that coachability from level to level. Is kind of what separates, guys. But as far as back to your question, sorry, I kind of got on my soapbox a little bit, but going back to your question, there are players at every level. I mean, don't get me wrong. I played Division III basketball for a year, and some of the best players that I played with, played Division III basketball. Those guys were 2 or 3 inches taller. Maybe didn't have a knee injury. For me, I had 4 ACL injuries. Who knows where I would have played. Some of those, we had a guy on our team that, his name is Phil Hogan. He was a 6-foot guard, one of the best players I ever played with. If he was 6'2", he would still be playing, and we'd be watching. We'd be watching him probably on the 2K tournament right now, because he'd be one of the NBA guys that were playing on the NBA 2K circuit, waiting for the season to come back. He was that good. He was too small probably. But player wise,
like you said about Deshaun, it's a lot of the pro guys, and same thing. I think. My trainer, we're about the same age. People look for. Sometimes you think that it's just the 40, 50-year-old guy, whatever the experience. Yeah, they're gonna give you something, but I think if people really want to coach and they do their homework and they're ready for it, and if you give them a chance, you're gonna learn from anybody that tries to. They really want to coach you and they really want to be in the gym with you, and it's the same with the player. You're gonna get better. I think it's just. As long as
it's all about having energy too, and that's the one thing I learned is like, there's 2 things that I think a trainer, or I think somebody that's working out with somebody, needs to have. They have energy and consistency, right? And so it's, first off, getting in the, and like, when I was with Speece, in the summertime, I would basically do workouts from about 8 a.m. until about 6 p.m. with, high school kids, middle school, so to keep up my energy was kind of hard at times. Right. But being energetic, making sure that making sure that, you might sweat, you might get out there and you're working hard, but then also consistency, not trying, being consistently being, this is who I am. I'm not going to be and I struggle with this at times, but being over emotional with things, but also being consistent in what you're saying, and our boss over here, Coach Price, he's unbelievable with this. He wants to make sure that everything that he says is also what we say. So there's consistency there, and it's the same thing with your trainer when you're training guys, like you're saying, guys with older experience or whatnot, but just that it's consistent what you're saying and teaching.
Yeah, and you got to put in the effort as far as training's a little bit different. Um, every summer we kind of sit down, we make a game plan, and it's just a little bit different than actually coaching a team and stuff like that. But it's really good.
Okay.
It's a good way to to learn how to develop players and just help them achieve something basically individually. And then once they get their teams, they really have to learn how to use that, to
Right.
put themselves in the best light to get the most playing time, to get the role they want and stuff like that. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes they might not get the role they want, and they can put in the whole work in the summer and be there every day, and it's just not there. It doesn't happen. I've been in that situation, at Mason, so I know how it is. But at some point, things will turn for them, and it's the same thing, like we said, with coaching. And if I'm not mistaken, you also you're a part of the Fort Wayne, right? You coached for the Fort Wayne in the G League, a tryout, right?
The Mad Ants. So I helped out. So Steve Gansey, and I hope Steve watches this because I owe so much to Steve. Amazing basketball coach, amazing basketball mind, great person. He's the head coach of the Mad Ants, and he was actually an assistant coach at the time. And every October they would do some stuff with their open tryouts, and I learned so much from this. So they would do in October. They do the open tryouts where teams players would come in. They pay some money, but they come in and they try to make the training camp roster. And Steve knew that I was around. I didn't get. I don't even think I got paid for it, but it was just something to do on like a 3-day weekend or whatever, and it was a good experience. It was always around my birthday too. So Steve always would help hang out with me for my birthday. We won't tell any of those stories, Steve. But no, it was a great experience because I was around pro players, and you got your weirdos that would come in that, never played high school basketball, thought they could make a G League team. So they paid their money and came in and tried out. And, they usually got cut pretty quick. And then I was allowed to give like some evaluations to Steve, and Coach Tickner was the head coach there at the time. And I'm not sure he was with the Kings. I actually ran into him when they see him. But I was able to learn from them, how to evaluate talent really. And I was able to give kind of my input. I was young. I was probably only 23, 24, give my input, give my talent, this, that, or the other, but coach these pros and see the efficiency with them and how efficient guys were. And I think you can attest to like the pro game's probably a little bit different with that, as far as being more efficient as opposed to, there's not a lot of high volume type guys in the program. It's more, picking my spots type thing. But it was a great experience. I learned a ton from Steve. Just, I think the most that I learned was talent evaluation. Because you're going 3 days, you're playing a lot of games, you're doing a lot of drills, which is great. And I learned, plays and drills and stuff like that. But the way that they evaluate things, the way they evaluate the way guys move, the way guys read screens, the way guys defend, how they, this guy's smart and how he cuts the floor in half. And that's kind of helped me as far as like, if an assistant coach will throw me, a bone and say, hey, here's a full game of this kid that sent me some, film. I want you to watch it. I do go back on that experience that I had with the G League for those, 3 years. I think it was 3 years I worked with them, to go back and really evaluate, as I'm evaluating some of the things that Steve taught me and some of the things that Coach Tickner taught me. It kind of comes into my mind at times, just different. And it might not be, totally, everything that way, like, oh, this is the way that the Mad Ants would evaluate this guy is that way I'm going to. It might just be something small. Like, for instance, I remember Steve told me one time, this guy every time he goes right, he's kind of trying to pull up, but he has a hitch in his shot when he's going up to his right. He's not going to be a consistent pull up jump shooter going right, I don't think. Going left, he's a little bit more smooth. So can we make that guy go better going right? Because I don't think that he's going to be. He might hit one or two, but I just don't think he's going to be as consistent. So as I'm watching film of guys, I'm like, you know what, that's right. That guy doesn't have a great feel going right, or he doesn't have a great, And so just like little small things, those guys are so good at it. And Steve's one of the best at it. I think of player evaluation, and what I learned from there. And then obviously as the game started going, because their whole thing in those G League things is, try to find talent to take to the training camp. Right. Being able to sit down too, though. And as they were, doing things, Steve would, pick up on different plays that he could implement into the games and stuff like that. And, he would throw in like a floppy set. Okay, everybody, we're going to run floppy here. So I learned about floppy, that everybody in the country runs now, right? Everybody runs floppy. You guys run it overseas. I know you do. So I learned about that from the G League. I had no idea what it was. I learned that from the G-League tryouts with Steve. And now you've seen it evolve over time. But to be able to see Steve put it in with, a bunch of guys that he didn't know, and then over the course of the weekend, as everything was happening, he also put in like twists and wrinkles to it. And his mind is he's a basketball mind. He should be an NBA head coach someday. But being able to learn from him in those regards was just an unbelievable experience, unbelievable, and something that I love to go back on for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. I've always been intrigued by the G League, and I think the coaching there, the style of play. It's a little bit different, but to me, I really like it. I really like it. A lot of people don't, honestly, especially overseas. They kind of overlook it. They kind of look for the talent that's there, and that's it. They kind of look for the player that's there, and hey, we want to take this guy, and we'll take him. Or I spoke to a coach recently, and they were just they're kind of bored right now. So I was like, "What are you doing now?" Like, I'm just watching G League games, and they watch
Great talent, great coaching. I mean, I think and you can probably attest to this from being overseas. There's good basketball a lot of places. There's bad basketball a lot of places, but there's good basketball a lot of places, and G League is one of them. I mean, I know a lot of our Spiece guys have played in the G League. I think Vito Brown's playing in the G League right now. So I know that I think Deshaun might have had a cup of tea over there in the G League at one point. It's neat for me, I think, to see these guys that I coached or I worked out with, like Vito Brown, that played at Wisconsin. I did workouts with him and saw him, and seeing him grow up. And it's kind of cool now to see guys that you coached or guys that you worked out with when they were in high school, even playing in places like the G League, playing overseas, having good careers. But the G League itself, I'm a big fan of. Just because I've seen the coaching that goes into it. From that side of it. And,
I think it's getting better.
And I know that those guys are getting.
Yeah, it's getting a lot better. I think the reputation he got in the beginning, a few years back in Europe, just a bad. It's kind of bad, everybody's there for their stats and stuff like that, and
Right.
they look at, they don't play defense. It's 140, it's 130, it's 120, and I'm like, well, they play 8 more minutes, and I was like, what's the difference in your game that was 40 minutes and you scored 90 points, and then playing 48 and you score 115? I was like, it's not.
Right.
Okay, I understand there's.
Right. And they're probably the same ones that would complain if the score was 65-60, right? They're the same ones that complain about Virginia winning 43-40, in a college.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of Virginia, and I like to watch it play. I think they're really the closest to European basketball that I've watched. I think Villanova, Jay Wright. There's no doubt he's a brilliant coach.
Right.
But you can see some tendencies that he either takes from Europe, or you can just see it, right? And
we're starting to see that more leak over, I think, a little bit too. More of the European stuff leak over, even in the rules, really. I think we're moving closer to a European style, European style lane line. I think we're at the European.
I don't think a lot of coaches in Europe now, they're talking about that. They know that the NCAA, they moved the line back, right?
So right. Yeah. I mean, the FIBA line, so you're playing with, the FIBA rules are starting to leak into our game over here a lot more too. So, and then, you add on to, I think that, the FIBA games, especially the higher levels, they're so well respected by coaches over here that I think that you're starting to see the game itself, leak over, the European motion, we called it at American, just the dribble handoff, backdoor cut to a ball screen on the wing, the European motion. It seems like everybody in the country runs that to some degree, and that came from Europe, I believe.
Yeah, well, I think
From the European leagues,
Virginia get a good. They kind of got a good shot out of it. Well, it was a good shot. It was just a tweak to it, I think.
Right.
Kyle Guy hit the shot. What was it?
It's an Indiana guy, so yeah, it probably went in if it was an Indiana guy. If it was Kyle Guy, it went in. That's an Indiana guy. We don't.
It was a good shot last year. I think in the championship game, I think that they ran something out of bounds that very similar to a motion where a guy cut, baseline guy came, and it was just a screen instead of cutting. It was just a screen. It was really good. It was good stuff by Coach Bennett.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. That's why I like to watch. That's why I said I was kind of sad this March. It's like that's the best time to watch it. And
I think we all are. I think we all are. So I think we're all missing it for sure.
Yeah. So as far as the video, let's talk about that a little bit because I've played at different levels, all different levels in Europe. So I played at top level in EuroLeague. I played Euro Cup 5 years. Those are the top competitions in Europe. This year I played in Greece, for example. And scouting in Greece it was huge. My coach went to Boston. He played in the U.S., so he had so he had some NCAA background, and he also coached for some really all-time greats in Europe.
Okay.
And we used to scout a lot, right? So we watch film. I say, maybe an hour Wednesday, of an hour and a half, whatever, on Thursday, same on Friday, and then even on game day right before, like 15, 20 minutes. So what do you guys do as far as film goes?
So I mean that's obviously it changes place to place, right? When I was at Richmond, Coach Mooney was like a DVD guy, and there wasn't a ton of I was new to it, so I had no idea. But he's kind of a DVD guy. So I would have whoever scout it was, I'd have 5 games on DVD for them. They would watch those 5 games with Coach Mooney, and we would do kind of for the most part, it was just player breakdown a couple days before. Coach Mooney does a really good job of preparing guys, but not overloading them with stuff. So we did a lot of DVD stuff. I would put together a DVD of just the players. Okay, here's number 0. Here's his tendencies. He's got 3 tendencies. He likes to go right. He's a jump shooter. He's going left. He's going to the rim or something like that. And then the clips, there'd be video then afterwards that would match up to what his tendencies were, right? At American, we didn't do a ton of video. The assistants did more of it, and it was usually day of game. We would go through just some personnel clips. Here's number 0. Here's 3 clips for him. Here's number 1, 3 clips for him. Like when I was at Cleveland State, we had a video coordinator, Sean Sims, which phenomenal human being first off, and a phenomenal video coordinator, one of the hardest workers I've ever been around in my life. He did some amazing stuff. So we would do. We watched a lot of film at Cleveland State, and it was we would watch us, we would watch our opponent, we would watch clips, we would actually watch the scouting report the day before a game, and then before we went on the floor for the game, and actually in between we do our warm up, go watch film, go warm up, then back to the locker room. Just there was a lot of video that we watched there, and then here at Lamar, we like to watch in after games, we like to clip up some stuff. One of the assistants or myself, depending on what's going on, we'll clip up our good clips, our bad clips, stuff that we can improve from the game before, and we'll watch that the day after the game usually, unless it's a Sunday. We're usually off on Sunday, so we'll watch that on Monday after a Saturday game. And then, then on Monday, if we're getting ready for a Wednesday game, we'll watch maybe some, if we play a team for a second time, we'll watch some stuff from the first time we played them. If it's the first time we play them, maybe we'll watch some sets that they run, some of their defensive tendencies, if they like to trap, if they like to play zone, if they, here's their simple man-to-man, just some stuff so that we were kind of familiar with it a little bit. And then on Tuesday or the day before game, Tuesday, Friday, we would do our personnel clips, watch, number 0, this is his tendencies. This is what he likes to do. This is him. This is number 1. This is him. Kind of watch that just to familiarize yourself with it. And then day of game, we would go over our baseline out of bounds plays. on film, maybe go through one or two sets that they might run that they run, quite a bit, and then get out on the floor and walk through them. And that's kind of it. So it varies place to place just on what you do. Some more, some less. Like I said, I've been really blessed to work for, 4 different guys really. I never got to do video with Ricky up at Concordia, but I've been 4 different guys that have 4 different ideas for everything. So the well-roundedness of it all then is pretty cool, because I've seen scouting reports that are a page long. I've seen scouting reports that are 25 pages long. I've seen playbooks that are not like 1 or 2 plays and everything else is just like a simple offense, to a book. I've seen all of it. I've worked for 4 guys that are totally different in all aspects, which has been awesome for me. And that goes no different than with video. Everybody has their own tendencies, their own the way that they want to watch film is different too. Like if they want to break down stuff, some coaches just want to watch the entire game. Some coaches coach once and then do it from the as review, whatever that's going to resonate with your players the best. What you think is going to get your players to understand what's going on in the scout the best. And everybody has their own ideas on that. You just got to make sure that you're doing what your boss wants first and foremost, and then getting it through to the players.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I think getting to the players. I think that's huge, because that's the bottom line. Short scout report, long scout report. I'm a big fan of it, just because I know that most of the games I'm not going to be the fastest or the most athletic at the floor position. So I'm going to get a lot of guys that might be faster or more athletic, but I know that I have a lot of skills I can use. So I really watch, especially at my position, I watch a lot of video. And then I do like to have all their plays and stuff like that, because not just to memorize them, but I've actually picked that up at AU. I transferred and I was on a scout team the whole year. We were doing 30 minutes before practice. We're doing their whole playbook basically, right?
Right.
Kieran Donna, he was in charge of that, and he was just he was big on that.
Right.
JJ was big on it too, right? Coach Jones was big on it. But as soon as we got on the floor, we had to know their plays like they were ours, right? As a scout team.
Right.
So that's when I kind of really got deep into scouting, as far as knowing everything about every nuance of their plays, because it makes your life so much easier on the floor. You get to.
I think there's a healthy balance to it too, though. There's a healthy balance of knowing so much. Like now, if you're a scout team member, I think go for it. Go try to find everything you can so you can help out your teammates. But I do think there's a healthy balance, and that's what I've kind of learned from working for 4 different guys is you don't want to know everything that they do so much where you get out of what you do well. You're right. You want to do what you do really well. You want to do that great. You want to be perfect in your things. But you also have to be prepared at the same time of what they're going to do. So there is like a yin and a yang to it a little bit. And that's something that I've learned. Over my 6 years working for 4 different guys is like I've seen guys get overloaded with, I forget how we're defending this ball screen today, or I forget how we're doing this. Wait a second, and so they're thinking too much on the floor. But I've also seen where guys are like not thinking, and then like it's just like we ran over that play 3 times, and you're not prepared for it, and they still score on it type thing. So it's like you got to have your goal as a coach. And that's where video can help you, is to have your guys well enough prepared that what you do great, meets everything in the middle. And so that way, so what you do great shuts down what they do that you prepared for. And so, I think that's the yin and the yang to it, and like you're saying, like overseas, you're studying, and that's, I think, not necessarily like when we go through personnel, you're obviously worried about your matchup and stuff like that. And you're thinking about your matchup. But you're also thinking about like I could guard 6, 7 different guys possibly, and everything's like, in college basketball for the most part, it's, everybody comes down, they run their set, they don't get their set, then they're in a high ball screen, right? You don't see very many continuity offenses around here where the guys are running motion for, breaking stuff off, and you got to, know their tendencies as much. It's let's guard the initial set and then let's guard the high ball screen, right? In the NBA or in the pros, it's a lot more, one-on-one, probably, I would say probably a little bit more like you probably need to know the guy that you're defending. You probably need to know his tendencies probably a little bit more than what they do in college. in my opinion, just
Yeah,
because
I
you're
think it
guarding
just
guys
depends.
one-on-one
Yeah,
more.
it depends on the coaching. I've seen it.
Right, right,
I see
right,
coaches that want to run, want to run things to the dot, right, the T. Hey, I want
right,
it all the way to the end. I'm like, really? It's like a
right.
23 and a half second offense. Really, you got to run this the end.
Tired by the time you're tired by the time you get to this opportunity to shoot it, right? Too tired to shoot
Yeah,
it,
no, but I mean, it's cool. It's cool. You know, like
right?
the same way you got a chance to to learn from all these coaches you've worked under, or you know all these guys that turn pro and you train them. I think everything, like I said earlier, you can pick up some good from anyone that really knows basketball. Um, if you're willing to do it, I think it's just a matter of
You gotta be humble. You gotta be humble with it, and like my thing right now is, with everything going on, with can't leave your house, and you can't, you can't leave your house. Right now we would have all been at the Final Four, networking, and all that, jazz. One thing that I've learned and that I want to take from this is like I can learn from a GA, at a Division II school in Wyoming. I can learn something from them as much as I can learn, from Bill Self. I can learn something from both of them, right? Because that GA up at Wyoming, or Wyoming Wesleyan, whatever it is, Division III school, they're learning from a boss too. They're learning basketball from somebody that's a head coach as well. They're learning, and they can bring that in. And I can learn from Bill Self, and I can learn from everybody. You just got to humble yourself and be willing to do it. You gotta say, hey, I'm not above this. I'm not above learning from anybody. And it goes to your point. Anybody that knows basketball, you can learn from. And you can take, and it might be when I'm a head coach in 30 years and I'm sitting on a sideline somewhere. I pull that play from that GA at Wyoming Wesleyan that I like, hey, I remember I learned something from them, 30 years ago over Zoom during a global pandemic. Like, I think I remember that play and I won a national championship because I have a play from a GA, in 2020. You never know how that's going to happen. You just got to humble yourself and be willing to do it. Be willing to
Absolutely.
listen.
Absolutely. So now, like, one last few things I want to talk about is, like you said, pick and roll right now. It's huge in basketball, right?
Right.
We run it in Europe. You guys run it here in the NBA. I mean, that's how
Oh,
James
it is.
works. Half of his stuff is hey man Capella, and that's how it all
Right.
started basically.
Right. Right.
National Mari, right? Um,
Right.
but I found that in Europe, from the coaches that I've worked with, usually they have like one defense that they really like, and they're not really willing to. They'll change it every now and then to another one that's either similar or maybe like a switch, right? It's always like
Right.
one or the other. It's, let's say, playing contain or whatever flat,
Right.
and then or I'm icing it and then I'm switching it. That's it, right? And do you guys work on? I just want to know at a college level because I know how Coach Jones was. Same thing.
Right.
His defenses that he liked, and he really pushed those. Um,
Right.
do you guys alter a lot of pick and roll defenses, or just kind of, hey, we have option A and option B, and that's kind of it?
I mean, again, that comes back to who you work for. So when I was at American and Richmond, we ran the matchup zone for the most part. I think at Richmond actually ran 100% matchup zone. I don't think we ever played anything else. So everything there is just obviously a switch. Everybody got to a switch, and you're switching everything, even if it's a slip. You're probably switching it most times, unless no hit, no switch. You're trying to you're
Yeah.
trying to do everything. Everything's a switch. You're trying to keep your bigs close to the basket, your guards away, right? So that was more so that this is what we're doing, and we're really, 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 really good at that. When I was at Richmond, we had one of the best defensive teams in the country. And our center never left the paint. It was like a ball screen's coming and he was handing it off to a guard. Like it was phenomenal. TJ Klein is playing in Israel right now. By the way, TJ, I'm still a better shooter than you, but he was phenomenal with that. He was able to see it and he was able to point out and communicate. And the big thing with the matchup zone is the communication, obviously. In all defenses, communication. Cleveland State, we did a lot of different things. It kind of was more scout based, I guess, a little bit more. And we're similar to that at Lamar, more scout based, based on what we see on film, what we see.
That's what I was hoping that you would hit is how do you practice that? Because, for example, one of my favorite coaches, Sasha Filipowski, I had in EuroLeague in Stelmet. He really had one or two defense, like I said, but we drilled. I mean, the whole year, even 1-0 defense, right? Like it was a hard hedge and recover.
Right.
You know,
I guess the way that we drill, I mean,
drill all of those. Like if you're covering 4 or 5
yeah, we
games or whatever.
Right. We trust our guys, I guess. I think that's the biggest thing is like, say that, a certain game we're going into, we're going to ice the ball screens on the wing, right? Like everybody else is, so this game we're going to work on ice, and we work on it over the summer, as much as we can, or, in the fall. And it's something that we do. But we trust our guys to get, and that's the thing is, hey, this game, I get it done. But we also know that we've worked on other things enough where we feel comfortable of, hey, we're going to trap this thing, or hey, we're going to push up and go under on this. So a lot of it just comes down to trust, and a lot of coaches, and Coach Price is unbelievable with this. Just of when he sees something that he thinks is going to work, he trusts the guys to do it. A lot of guys in college that I've learned, they won't do anything that they haven't practiced, right? And they're to that. But we've like when we go into a game, we might not have practiced it going into that specific game. Like let's say, hey, we're going to trap the high ball game, but we over time someplace. And coach just kind of trusts our guys that we're going to do that. Now, when I was at Cleveland State, it was, we had, I think it was like, 3 or 4 times, hey, 3 or 4 things like these areas are where we're going to do certain things, on this area in this box, hey, we're always going to ice it if it's over here. If it's at the top of the key, we have these options. And going into the game, it'd be like 2 or 3 things that we were going to do, or 1 or 2 things that we were going to do on that certain ball screen. And we weren't going to change from doing that during that game. Now we would practice it. But we did have an outline of everything too there, where it was like, if, the ball's on this side of the floor on this, in this box area over here, it's definitely always going to be an ice, and so we knew automatically that was the ice. So the side ball screen is probably a little bit different than the high ball screen. The high ball screen, we had a bunch of different things that we would do. One consistent, I will say though, at every place that I've been is depending on how high that ball screen is out at the top of the key, most teams will go under it depending on how high it is.
Yeah.
Most teams will, depending on how high it is. Now, you don't see as much, and you see, like I said, you can always, we call it weak it, you can, or you can always go to the weak hand, you can always trap it, you can, either switch it, there's a bazillion things you can do, right?
There's a ton of things. That's why,
but like I said, it's kind of
how you work on it.
Yeah.
I want to know how you work on it. Like you mentioned, you kind of drill in the summer, you drill in the fall. So then,
right.
during the season, you as a coach, you guys have the confidence to throw it in there.
Well, you have so little time. You have so little time during the season, because like you said, there's so many things that you're doing, and when you're changing from game to game on how you're going to guard it, you have so little time because you don't want to keep your guys on the floor for 3 hours a day, right? Because the season's so long. So you have so little time that you're really kind of going back to what you taught them in the summer, what you taught them in the fall on it. And it's almost like a refresher course when you get to the practices. So like you said, you're definitely trusting your guys that like, hey, we've gone over this, we know how to guard it. Now it's just doing it type thing. So being able to be in all that, I think is key.
Awesome. And how much are you guys on the floor? Like, let's say during the season. I know it depends if regularly, I would say, not the day after the game or something, right?
Right. Yeah. So again, place to place is different, right? Here it's, usually, and it's usually pretty consistent, I guess, to a degree, at the beginning of the season,
given the rules, right?
When the season officially to the rule, right. You're allowed 20 hours a week, right? On the floor during the season, right? So during like the preseason time, September, October, early November, maybe, you're usually 2.5 to 3 hours, probably for the most part, maybe 2 to 3. Just kind of depends on what your coach, and a lot of it depends on your players now. Like a lot of it depends on if they're, getting stuff done. Like, It might be a 2-hour practice plan, but if you guys aren't getting your stuff done, it might turn into 3 pretty quick. You know what I mean? Like, so you're allowed those 20 hours. Now, as the season starts to go on and especially like this year, we only played like 6 or 7 guys for the most part. So we kind of like, scaled it down to where practices were like an hour and 15 minutes. And maybe like a half an hour of that was shooting free throws, day after game, guys are beat up, especially if it's like a day after a game where you travel and you're getting back early, that afternoon practice, guys that had just gone to class, they did, they maybe 3-4 hours of sleep. Maybe we come in, just shoot free throws and shoot some jump shots and watch a little bit of film and get out. And it's like 45 minutes. So it just kind of depends, obviously after losses, it might be a little bit longer, you're just trying, cause losses suck. So you're kind of like, you're hurt a little bit. So you want to stay on the floor. And, but something that I think that, some real, like that separates, I think, a good coach from a great coach is like feeling out your players in that regard. How are your players feeling? Are they sore? And Coach Price does an amazing job of just like understanding the mental state of our players, but also understanding like the physical state, understanding that like, hey, like, and one of the things that I think that Coach Price does that's awesome, and some other coaches have kind of done this, but not as much as Coach Price, is, the guys that don't play as much. So let's say we play on a Wednesday, the guys that don't play as much, they might do an individual workout on Thursday after practice. So like if they say that we practice for like 30 minutes, they might do a 30-minute individual workout afterwards because they didn't play, just to keep them sharp, because at the end of the day, you're going to need those guys at some point. Guys get injured all the time, and one of those guys got to step up. So those guys got to stay sharp and in shape, fresh, ready to go type thing. So Coach Price is really good with that. So, but like I said, it just kind of depends, what these guys are, feeling. And later on in the year, you probably get more out of getting them in an ice tub than you do on the floor. You probably get better. You're probably better off with that, because at that point they're not learning anything new. And it's not, you're probably in the second time around for games or whatever for opponents. So it's, you already know who you're playing, kind of type thing. So, but no, all that's just kind of dependent on each coach and, what they do. But I would say as the season goes on, it definitely gets less.
Got you. Well, Tommy, man, thank you so much. This has been a great talk. Just from talking about your role now and picking your brain. I mean, clearly you gotta, think you're ready.
I think so too.
So, it's been really great. And I mean, I thank you for your time. And
Awesome.
as always, we'll stay in touch.
Vlad, thank you so much. It was an honor. And, anything you ever need, let me know. Thanks, Vlad.